Welcome. You're listening to Sports Econ 101. For those of you new to our show, imagine a few guys sitting around a bar without the drinks talking sports and business with you, the audience, listening in. I'm your host, Edward Brown, along with my co-host, well-known sports personality, Bruce McGowan, and Vern Glenn of CBS affiliate KPIX-TV in San Francisco. And on this show, we discuss sports topics from a business perspective. In addition, we'll ask sports trivia questions where we're giving away 3 vacations to the first 3 callers with the correct answer. Our phone number is 888-660-4495. Now write that number down. 888-660-4495 because you're going to use that number to answer the trivia questions for 3 vacations given away during each commercial break. That's right, we're giving away 9 vacations during this show. Now, the vacations are not sponsored by the radio station, but by Lighthouse Resort and Marina, which is located 1 hour northeast of San Francisco. The vacations are free. Their only request, a $75 cleaning fee to cover housekeeping expenses. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Today's trivia theme is basketball. And on today's show, we're going to discuss freedom of speech. Now, I'm not a big Ozzie Guillen fan, but after he admired Castro, he got suspended. Also, how come kids can't get autographs as easily today? I remember when I was a kid, it was a lot easier to get those autographs. Managers playing their high-paid players instead of other players, even if those high-paid players are not playing very well. And I got to admire Bruce Bochy for not playing Barry Zito in the 2010 series. Yeah, he just didn't have it that year. And what about the worst contracts in history? We'll take a look at that. Maybe talk about steroids if we have time. And there was a baseball player who had lost out on $1 million bonus one time because the fan base hadn't hit a certain amount. And we'll talk about that. Let's see here. Also, if you have any questions, you can email them to edward@sportsecon101 and we'll try to answer it on the air. And this segment of Sports Econ 101 is sponsored by IRA Services Trust Company, providing self-directed retirement accounts with more choices, diversification, and among the lowest fees in the industry. Now, I personally use them to hold my diversified IRA, and you should check them out at iraservices.com. Don't touch that dial because you are listening to Sports Econ 101, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-hosts Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan. And guys, I want to get into email time. We received an email from a listener that said, because you guys are famous, not me, but you guys are famous, your most interesting interviews. Vern, let's start with you.
Most interesting interviews. Well, Hank Aaron sticks out to mind because he's Hank Aaron. It was my second year in the markets. This is 1992. Aaron was here to give Barry Bonds a MVP award, and Gary Radnich, my co-worker at the time, was off, so I had to do the show. I'm live at Candlestick Park, and Hank Aaron is our guest. And if you watch the tape, if I may use the term tape, of the show, it looks like, hey, there's Vern, calm, cool, having a good time, having a friendly chat with Hank Aaron. But on the inside, I am jumping up and down. Like, oh my God, this is Hank Aaron. This is Hank Aaron. Yeah. That was interesting. And on the other side, I had a very interesting interview with
Song and dance, man. You're snapping your fingers.
Lady of the Blue Screen, the most successful porn star in the history of the business.
Porn star?
Yeah.
Marilyn Chambers.
No. More modern than that.
A woman?
Yeah. Huge box office star. In fact, she crossed over, was mainstream briefly.
I don't know.
Oh, come on.
I don't go to those movies.
Come on.
I don't know.
Come on.
Okay, while you're thinking about that, Bruce, let's go on to you.
Well, I have a hard time with it. I'd say it probably right coming to mind, and it was a short interview, but it was maybe 6 questions, was Joe Namath. After a 49er Rams game when Joe was finishing up his career in LA as a backup, and I asked him, he'd just come out of the shower and his hair was all messed up and he was wearing a towel around his waist, and he goes, give me a few minutes. So he gets himself dressed and he puts his sweater on, and he gets over to his little cubicle, and all these other reporters are coming around, and they see me with the camera guy because I was working in TV at the time, a little station up in Eureka, and Joe Namath couldn't have been a more gentlemanly, likable, interesting guy.
And he's not the porn star that you're thinking of, right?
God, I just.
Okay,
I was going to say, and Joe Namath, the thing that struck me about the interview was, I said, so what's up next? You're 37 years old or 36 or whatever. He was at the end of his career. He says, well, right now I'm just looking forward to getting home and seeing my lady. And I thought that was kind of cool. But I've gotten to know Joe Namath a little bit. He's a friend of mine on Facebook. Of course, he's a friend of a lot of people's on Facebook. But he tells the story about the toughest game he ever played against was not the Super Bowl, because they won that Super Bowl decisively over the Baltimore Colts.
It's got to be against the Raiders.
It was against the Raiders in the championship, and they had to dethrone the Raiders to get to the Super Bowl. And Joe had some shots to his shoulder, to his face. I mean, Ike Lassiter knocked him down one time, and Joe was lying on the ground in pain, and Ike Lassiter standing over him yelling, I got him! He's hurt! He's down! Of course, Joe Namath came back and threw a touchdown pass to Don Maynard, and we all know what happened. And, they beat the Raiders, and that was the first of many disappointing conference title losses the Raiders had until they finally went in 76. But I'd say Joe Namath was one, and I don't know, there have been so many, but I love Vernon's story about Hank Aaron. I felt the same way about
Oh
Joe
my
Namath.
God! Oh, what a huge fan! Even today,
Yeah.
I'm just huge fan. I mean,
Yeah.
Hank, come on,
Class.
it's Hank Aaron, and I might get blank stares from like younger kids, but come on, it's Hank Aaron.
I've gotten a chance to talk with him, but in group situations or on the telephone, but never one-on-one, face-to-face, and what a big thrill that would be.
He was awesome.
Willie Mays is a lot of fun to talk with. He's kind of different, but you have to be careful what you ask Willie, because sometimes he'll come back at you. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? And it's always he's not trying to make you feel bad or anything. He just wants to know why are you asking me that question?
The thing with Willie, I like about when he's like playing around, he calls me Pee Wee.
Oh, is that right?
But when he's serious, he calls me Vernon.
Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah,
Okay.
not Vern.
Not Vern.
He goes Vernon.
Very
Yeah,
nice.
Very
yeah,
nice,
yeah.
yeah.
By the way, that actor, Jenna Jameson.
Yeah, I've heard
Jenna Jameson.
it. Doesn't strike a bell.
The name sounds familiar, but not because I've gone to see the movies, but
So I've heard.
so you
Yeah.
heard, yeah.
I went and
My
saw
wife's
The
listening.
Behind the Green Door and
Yeah,
The
that's
Resurrection of Eve was a double bill. It was with the two big porn films of the early 70s. I was 19 years old, went with my buddies in San Francisco, and it was such a big deal, and I just thought, well, it's just a bunch of people crawling over each other with the cameraman going, come on, make it more interesting.
Listen, I'm so old that porn films, everyone kept their clothes on. It wasn't very
So
exciting.
that is going bad.
That is pretty bad. Okay, hey guys, really quickly, freedom of speech. You guys remember the old Ozzie Guillen?
Oh, sure.
Okay, you remember he got suspended.
For saying something nice about what Castro.
Yeah, he said he admired Fidel Castro in Little Havana
Ooh,
just before that stadium opened.
not a good idea.
Yeah, but I mean, what's the idea? Okay, so it's not a good idea. It's not politically correct.
Right.
But isn't there something about freedom of speech?
Yeah, there is, but you just have to be a little more judgmental about what you're going to say.
Yeah, but to suspend them and probably
Yeah.
without pay. I mean, it's one thing to say, the Miami Marlins don't share the same view, but we respect the fact that he's got a right to his opinion, or just distance themselves. But
That's
punish
odd.
him that
That's
way-
Ozzie,
But I
though.
think
That's
the
Ozzie.
story is it caught everybody off guard. He had given that interview. Was it Time magazine? He had given that interview a few months beforehand.
Yeah.
And that was it. I don't think the Marlins even knew about it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it hits, and it's like, oh my God.
But Ozzie, I was going to say about Ozzie, because I dealt with him a number of times. He just shoots from the hip. I mean,
Yeah. And
everything
I don't
everything
like
is
him. I'm not-
unfiltered.
yeah,
Everything is unfiltered.
I'm not an Ozzie Guillen fan.
He's
Ever
a,
since
he's a good manager, but he shoots from the hip.
I'll tell you this: when they came to play the Giants the first time with the Marlins, man, I mean, everybody was just all over him. I'm just talking about from a media standpoint. Showtime was there because they were doing the Showtime series on the Miami Marlins that particular year. I mean, it was just hanging around, just waiting for him to just
I
shoot
think
from
he
the hip
enjoyed-
and say something stupid.
I think he enjoyed it, though. I really do, Vern. I think he enjoyed it.
He's that kind of guy. I like what he says here. He goes, yeah, I was thinking in Spanish and I said the wrong thing in English.
Yeah.
But basically, his whole thing supposedly was that he was just surprised that Castro was able to stay in power.
Well, here's the thing that Americans don't like to remember this, but we supported Castro when he first was fighting Batista.
That's right.
We armed the guy.
Yeah.
It's always so funny. We always sit there, that guy's such a bad guy. But yeah, we supported him initially, just like I don't want to get into politics here. So this is a sports show.
I just thought it was just one of those
Yeah.
really interesting things that a guy would get suspended.
I know, that's
for
pretty
freedom
pretty
of speech.
ridiculous. You're right.
Okay. How about this? Are individual celebrations really bad or good for sports?
I think they're great. I mean,
think
they're fun.
great,
It's
too.
entertainment.
Yep.
You know, and it's a chance for these athletes to kind of blow off a little steam.
Sure.
They just scored this game-winning touchdown or made a spectacular catch. Have a little fun with it, and that was the great thing about not the World Football League, but the USFL. They let them have fun with it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's
remember?
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember the Washington Redskins would kind of pretend that they were throwing craps. You remember that?
Yeah.
In fact, Elmo Wright, you remember him?
Yeah,
Kansas City, he
yeah.
was the first one kind of to do the dance.
Mhm.
Well, the first guy
ball.
to spike the ball was Homer Jones of the New York Giants.
It wasn't Otis Taylor?
No, it was not Otis Taylor. It was well, maybe it was because New York always is the first, but that's what I hear. But I mean, that was considered wow. He's spiking the football, but you don't see it too much in baseball. And I think the reason you don't see it, you usually see the after when they win a walk-off game, everybody goes nuts. But it's just there's so many games.
Well, I think there's another thing too. When a guy hits a home run, then he just takes an easy trot, one flap down like Jeffrey Leonard. You got to watch out. The next pitch may get
right in your ear.
Yeah.
Yep.
And Jeffrey did. Remember, he came home and Tony Pena during the playoffs after the one flap down took a ball that was coming in from the outfield, and Jeffrey Leonard's trying to score. And he whacks him right in the head with it, knocked him flat. So he took that ball with his glove and went bam, just knocked right into him. And Jeffrey Leonard got up and was like, okay. Well,
I think guys like Joe DiMaggio were kind of smart. They kind of realized, don't show too much emotion.
You know what he did? He showed emotion one time. He kicked up some dirt when the guy made a great catch.
Yep.
Yeah,
That's about the only time he ever did that.
That was a different era.
Wasn't the Pacific League just Pacific Coast League? Weren't they? Wasn't that like a powerful league? Didn't guys?
Oh yeah, no question.
Sure, you had the Alou brothers in there too.
Yeah, you didn't have as many teams back then.
Okay, guys, we're going to cut to our first commercial break, and again, the theme is basketball. And who set the NBA record for being the first to miss 5,000 free throws? And I know you've heard this player. The first three callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888, and no looking at it on the internet, 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Who set the NBA record for being the first to miss 5,000 free throws? Again, 888-660-4495. Make sure to include your name and your email address. Speak slowly. Spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial because Sports Econ 101 will be right back with some very interesting news.
Is it Wilt?
It's gotta be Wilt
Yeah,
Chamberlain.
it is Wilt.
Like a plantar fasciitis kind of.
Interesting.
Okay. Let's get this done right here.
The human body is such a complex mechanism.
Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with my co-hosts Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan. When we got to the first commercial break, we asked this trivia question. Who set the NBA record for being the first to miss 5,000 free throws?
Wilt Distill.
Wilt Distill.
Wilt Chamberlain.
Will anybody ever score 100 points in a game again?
No. Al Attles likes to tell the story that Al Attles played with Wilt Chamberlain and later coached the Warriors. He said, can I tell you about the night that Wilt and I scored 123 points together?
Yeah.
Al had 23 points that night, but Wilt had the other 100.
Well, David Robinson had, 81? I think they kept feeding him the ball. I remember that. That was about 10 years ago, I think.
And what did Kobe have the other?
It was in the 70s.
Yeah.
It was in the
70s, 78 games.
But you have to have guys feeding you the ball, right? I mean, you can't just do it on your own.
You know where Wilt did that too? He did it in a little town called Hershey, Pennsylvania. Because in those days, the NBA played a lot of games in sort of the outlying areas because they were fighting for survival and fighting for audiences.
63
against the New York Knicks.
Against the New York
62,
Knicks.
I think.
62.
Okay.
It was the year before they moved out here to the West Coast. They were still the Philadelphia
Warriors. Yeah, that's right. Okay, one last thing about the individual celebrations. Did you guys hear about the track team that this was disqualified because one of the teammates raised his finger to the sky, like to basically thank God or thank his
after winning a race?
Yep.
Somebody just pointed out, that's it.
That's it. The individual celebration. That's it. Your whole team's disqualified.
That's ridiculous.
It was a relay race.
That's ridiculous.
It is. I mean,
come on.
In basketball, guys making shots and they're pointing up, and there's all kinds of things like that.
That wouldn't happen in the Bible Belt.
No, it wouldn't.
I'm trying to remember where. I don't remember actually where it was, but I think it was in the Midwest because they just basically had a generic rule that says no individual celebrations at all
of any kind.
Of any kind.
Jeez.
So
it's a little extreme.
Well, do you ever go to some of these sports like soccer?
How about
games?
like a little Tiger Woods little pump?
Like
Sorry, can't do it.
Sorry,
Can't do it. Or some of these soccer games where some of the parents get so entrenched in it that they have Silent Day. You ever heard about that?
No.
No cheering at all.
Oh, geez.
Nothing.
Wow, so the parents, they have to contain themselves.
Yeah, I think they made that rule up because of me.
Yeah, I think
They get
sports
too
is great
excited.
though because it allows you. I love walking into the arena or the ballpark because you see all these people and you see their looks in their faces. They're like little kids again.
Mm-hmm.
You get to escape the humdrum craziness of normal life to be a child again, and the athletes do the same thing. Let them have some fun. I agree with Vernon. I mean, if you can't handle it and somebody on the other team doesn't like it, well, get even by knocking the guy down the next time at the line.
Yeah, you don't like it? Do something about it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like here, as a parent, watching my kids play sports, sometimes I get a little too involved in it. But I never said anything bad about other opposing players, or kill the umpire or anything like that. I just, kind of, I really want to cheer for my kids.
90% of the parents out there do a good job with their kids. It's just that 10% that make it uncomfortable that they get demonized and everybody gets painted with the same broad brush sometimes, don't you think?
Yeah.
Sometimes fights break out.
Oh boy.
That's good for him. In fact, not again, something else. In fact, well, talking about kids, how come kids can't get autographs as easily now?
Because the players just aren't available as much, and also autographs are being sold.
Yeah.
Which is really sad. I mean, they have shows, and I understand guys wanting to make money, but I think it's so sad that you guys are, you have to pay $100 for somebody's autograph, and you don't even get a chance to shake the guy's hand or look him in the eye. Just get out of the way, move on. Next
So it's cheaper to give a kid $20. Hey kid, go up there and go up to Posey and get his autograph, and the players sign for the kids.
Yeah. Bill Russell had a
the
rule.
kid gets his $20. He gets the Posey autograph.
Yeah.
He gives it back to the collection guy.
Bill Russell had a rule that the great Boston Celtic, he wouldn't sign for anybody. And apparently, I heard the story. Jim Barnett, the Warriors television announcer, tells the story that this old lady, came up to him once and kept bugging him and asking him. Finally, she started crying. And so Russell finally, okay. And he said that was the only time Bill Russell ever signed an autograph.
So if I cried in front of Russell, he would give me.
That wouldn't work.
No.
You have to be an old lady.
I'll be there in about 3 years. Okay. Also, what about the
I just have this image of Edward and
Yeah.
Brad.
With a gray
30 years from now.
Hey, I got the legs for it. So.
with a gray wig there, yeah.
Wow.
And the glasses, Yeah.
Well, what about the fact that the state, where they have the fans sitting? It used to be when we were kids, you didn't pay for the expensive ticket, and then after a couple of innings, if you saw an empty seat, you just ran down there. Now, I mean, they got so much.
They don't let you. Yeah, they don't let you
do
go.
any of that
The
stuff.
average ticket, not for baseball, but for the NBA during the playoffs, is $100. And I think I'm being a little liberal when I say that. It may not be quite that high, but who can afford these prices anymore? The middle class fans are not going to games anymore. They can't afford to. I think it's very sad.
Yeah.
And they're the people that support pro sports.
Oh yeah, because you can't fill 50,000 seats with.
It's corporate people. It's young people who have dispensable income. Because they don't have huge bills to pay. They don't have kids at home. They don't have. I think it's really sad.
Okay, but I got to tell you a fun story though.
Okay. Before I become gloom and
No.
doom.
Okay, this fun story. My son was about, I think he was about 12 years old, and he came. We happened to get really good tickets for the Giants game. We were only about the fourth row up from the opposing dugout, so first base side.
At Candlestick.
No. This was at Pac-Man.
AT&T. Okay, all right.
Okay. So my son happened to have a glove, and I told him to bring his glove and all that fun stuff. So they always buy gloves that have autographs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They print a billion of those things, and this one happened to be Joe Carter. So it turned out that the Giants that day just happened to be playing the Cubs, and when one of the guys sitting next to us happened to see my son's glove, he says, Joe Carter is up in the booth. He's one of the announcers for the Cubs, and so the guy says, with these tickets, you can actually go and possibly say hello to him. He goes, but you only got like 5 minutes before the game starts. Okay, hurry up. So we're running. We have to get through all these security things.
Mm-hmm.
Finally get up there, and there's like 2 minutes to spare. And there's a lady standing in front of the booth. And she says, well, wait here. Let me see what I can do. And so about 30 seconds later, out comes Joe Carter.
Oh, that's great.
With the glove.
Yeah.
Okay, because we gave her the glove so that he could just show him, right? He comes out with the glove and he kind of pounds it like a kid pounds it.
Right.
Right. And he goes, I was wondering what happened to my glove. And then we also had a ball. I mean, he was such a nice guy.
He's a great guy.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
And
he is.
looked like a tank.
Yeah, he's a
And
big guy.
Oh my God, he was just built like a.
He finished his career with the San Francisco Giants and against the Chicago Cubs in a one-game playoff for the wild card. He ended his career by hitting a Rod Beck, who was then pitching for Chicago.
Sure.
Little humpback liner to first base for the final out. But of course, Joe Carter won the 1992 World Series for Toronto with that amazing
huge home run.
Oh yeah.
Hey, speaking of on that topic, do you guys remember your first baseball glove?
Yes, I do.
I do. I think mine was probably Kid Nichols. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. I think it was probably Willie Mays.
Willie Mays?
Yeah.
Gaylord Perry, of all people.
I had a Brooks Robinson glove.
Oh, well, you're from Baltimore.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
The
Brooks
vacuum, the vacuum
third base.
cleaner.
The Golden Glove, Oh, he was amazing. The 1970 World Series, I still have
I still
memories of that.
me too.
The great plays he made against the Reds. He made
Yeah.
3 incredible plays
That's
against
it.
the Reds.
And that year, Baltimore won all of the title games.
Yeah, that's right. They did. They
Colts
That's
won
right,
the Super.
Colts,
They
right on my
won
birthday.
Super Bowl
I remember
V.
Yeah. And they won the
Royals
World Series.
won the
over
World
the Reds.
Series.
And the Bullets.
The Bullets.
Yeah,
The Baltimore Bullets
the Baltimore Bullets.
beat the
Oh,
Knicks.
that's right. Before they became the Washington Bullets.
Yeah.
Very good.
Earl the
But
Pearl.
but-
Gus
yeah.
Johnson.
But the Bruins didn't do anything.
The Boston Bruins.
Yeah.
Well, we're talking about Baltimore.
What did I say? Oh, I'm thinking Boston. Baltimore doesn't have a hockey team. Come on,
No,
Edward.
they don't. They have a minor league team, though, don't they? I think they do.
We had there was the Baltimore Skipjacks.
Oh, I love that.
I don't think they're around anymore.
Yeah, of course, you probably get into the Washington Capitals, who are just down the road, the NHL team.
That's right.
That's
Yeah,
true.
yeah.
Okay. How about this? Managers playing their high-paid players even if they're not playing well. Now, I remember it was awesome that Bruce Bochy didn't allow Zito to play in 2010 in the playoffs because he just wasn't playing well. Compare that to Roger Craig, who always had that, you gotta go who brung you to the dance.
Mhm.
I hate that because if a guy's not playing well, you don't play him. I don't care if he did well for 162 games.
Performance based.
I remember that bring this up, and it brings back a bad memory. 1987, seventh game of the playoffs. Adley Hammaker had given up a big lead in Game 3, and it cost the Giants a game to the Cardinals. Not Game 7. He's out there, and Jose Oquendo, it's a 3-run
Yes.
home
Oh.
in the second inning, and that was pretty much the game. And Adley Hammaker couldn't have, they could have had Mike Krukow, they could have put up Mike Lacoste. I'm not saying those guys would have won the game, but Mike Krukow had won Game 4.
Yeah.
Pitched the game of his life, a complete game, and
He was good. He was good. I
yeah,
like
he was good that year. That year and the year before, he won 20 games. Mike Krukow, to this day, you mentioned that to him. He's usually pretty open about it, but he's I don't want to talk about that.
Wow, still bothersome.
Still bother. I don't blame them. You get their one
Sure.
shot. They were going to go to the World Series,
Yeah.
and they probably would have beaten the Twins.
Wasn't that the same year that Oquendo and Clark got into it on second base?
No, that was actually the next
So
year,
85.
86, or I'm sorry, 88.
Oh, that was the next year.
Next year, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Kinda dating
That's
myself.
okay. I'm one of these trivia buffs when it comes to Giants history.
Okay.
That's
So what do you guys feel about that, though? Just playing players.
Well, I don't know. You go ahead and burn first.
I think it's performance based. I think you have, if you're producing, then you need to be in there. But there's a lot of guys that are running the team that are number guys. Who are like, hey, we're paying this guy, blah blah blah. You gotta
Exactly. General manager says, hey, we're paying this guy $100 million. You got to put him in there. Well,
it's the whole. Remember Popovich got fined for not playing his players. He wanted to arrest them. Yeah, because Stern's thing is, hey, people work hard for their money. They get a ticket. They want to come out and see Tony Parker play, not to sit there in street clothes.
Because maybe they should have announced it like a couple of days ahead.
Well, I don't know. Well, in a lot of cases, those tickets are already purchased.
I don't blame him.
There's that expectation.
But I don't blame him for doing that. I mean,
No, I
look,
don't either.
San Antonio gets into probably gets into the finals this year. But I agree with Vernon. I think in terms of putting Barry Zito on the inactive roster, I think that's a good move because he only pitches once every 5 days, and it's hard to come out of a slump when you're a pitcher. If you're a hitter, you're getting out there every day. A pitcher, it's much tougher. If you're having a bad year, it's always tough.
Excellent.
Here's the question:
Wait,
will Barry Zito pitch 200 innings? Because Will Claus kicks in if he hits 200.
Oh, see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get it. Let's talk about that when we come back.
Mr.
Okay.
Econ.
Yeah. Who was the first NBA player to win 5 season MVP awards? First 3 callers with the correct answer. What do they win? A free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Who was the first NBA player to win 5 season MVP awards? 888-660-4495. Make sure to include your name, your email address, speak slowly, not like I'm doing right now, And say one letter at a time, and don't touch that dial. Sports Econ 101. We'll be right back.
Michael Jordan?
Nope.
Nope. What, Magic?
Nope.
Five MVP.
You never heard of this guy. No, I'm just kidding.
Playing performance based and not playing. Yeah.
Oh, 200 innings.
Yeah, the 200 innings. Yeah.
Okay. So answer the question, go to the 200 innings, and then you do your.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Vern Glenn and Bruce McGowan. When we cut to the second commercial break, we asked this trivia question: who was the first NBA player to win 5 season MVP awards? Gentlemen.
I was going to say Wilt or MJ or Magic, but it's not.
It's not. It is
Bill Russell.
Bill Russell.
Number
That
6.
is-
There you go.
That's it. Okay. Before we cut to the break, we were talking about like performance-based things like Zito getting paid. What's that?
Was it 20 million?
126 million over 7 years.
Right.
Okay, and this year, which is his last year, he has this clause in his contract. If he pitches 200 innings, he hits an incentive in his contract. I think it gives him another year, or it kicks it. Or it guarantees him another year. Or something. There's something that's in his favor.
Now,
They should keep him, though. I mean, the way he's pitching.
he's pitching well.
Yeah,
But
he
now, okay, Bochy obviously. I mean, we know this. Bochy obviously knows.
Well, it's
this.
not. Well, it's not. It's not a Bochy. I mean, this is Sabian. This is Larry Bear.
No, but
and
no, except that Bochy is going to take him out.
Here's one thing.
Right?
That you have
If he's pitching the innings, he's going to say,
Yeah.
"Hey."
But I don't
hey,
think.
well,
I don't think.
he's not keeping
I don't
score.
think he would take it out on his own. I think he would be instructed.
Yeah.
Not to take him out.
I don't think that's going to enter into the conversation. The Giants are trying to win another World Series. The last thing they're going to do is get cheap about something like that, right?
Can you imagine he's on inning 199? They need him for that one last inning to win the game and go to the postseason.
Sorry, too bad. Well, you know what? Before we get to the story,
Call in the new pitcher. Yeah, I think it's going to happen, though.
Did you guys hear the story? I think it was in the late 80s, could have been the early 90s. And I don't know if it was Gary Carter or it was someone of his caliber, where his contract said that he was going to get an extra $1 million bonus if they hit like 3 million fans.
Wow.
And on the last day, they were 2,999,000 fans.
Oh, jeez.
And he wasn't keeping track. He was 1,000 fans short of getting the bonus.
Wow.
And if he would have thought about it, he would have just bought 1,000 tickets, just give them to everybody,
Jeez.
and get his bonus.
And it would have kicked in.
Yeah, so now I don't know if they
that's interesting.
ownership got kind of stingy and just said keep it a secret, don't tell them.
That's why you pay your agent. You pay your agent to keep track of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, Vern, you were going to tell us a fun story about Eddie Murray.
Oh, Eddie Murray, who would not do interviews with the media. Well, I didn't know it at the time.
Grumpy guy.
I'm just like this Cub reporter. I just started in Baltimore. In fact, I'd seen Larry King in Washington at Zook Zebra's, one of his favorite restaurants. And I said, "Hey, Mr. King, I'm starting in Baltimore. In the next couple of days, do you have any advice for me?" And he's like, "Be yourself." Anyway, so I'm up there. We're in the Orioles clubhouse, and I'm with the rest of the Baltimore media guys, and I'm trying to get to know him or whatever. Anyway, Eddie Murray's like at his locker, like he had hit a home run or something like that, and I'm, when you're young and you're anxious, a new market, you're trying to, you'll interview everybody in the clubhouse if you have to. You just kind of show, your worth. So I see Eddie, and then a couple of guys in the media are like, "Hey, there's Eddie Murray over there. Hey, why don't you go get him? He's right there. He's wide open." I was like,
and at the time you didn't know he.
I didn't know. So I'm like. Yeah, that's a good idea. So I go over there with my cameraman. I think maybe my cameraman looked at me twice, like,
Yeah.
what? But anyway, we go over there. I get within 5 feet of him. He turns, he looks at me, he starts saying, "No, thank you very much." And I'm like, well, Eddie, I just get no, thank you very much. He just cut me off. Well, Eddie, I just no, thank you very much.
At least he was thanking you.
I'm looking at the back of the media guy. They're laughing.
I got a good one to tell you. Willie McGee, who's one of my friends, I still keep in touch with him. Former Cardinal great, came out here to play with the Giants, and when he signed with the Giants, had a big contract with the Giants. I tracked him down and called him up on his home phone, and I'd never had much luck with him as a player. He'd always been kind of curt and sort of rude. He goes, "How did you get this number? How did you get this number?" We did the interview. He was cool. But then I introduced myself to him, and we talked without doing an interview, and just talked about family and about where he was from, because he grew up in Richmond. Talked about his dad, who was his dad had about 5 jobs as a deacon in the church. He used to take Willie with him to all his jobs and told him how to do. You're going to have to learn how to do this stuff because you never know, baseball may not come through for you. And I tell you, I got to know a side of Willie McGee that I never thought I'd get to know. And as a result, I didn't interview him too often. I just like to talk to the guy about life. And it's great because you take an athlete. Some athletes just don't like dealing with the media. And it's nothing, the media guys get so dang, their fur gets
intrusive.
Oh, yeah.
And you know what, Bruce? A lot of these guys, they really like it. If you just roll over and they just start talking about, I don't know, life, current events, whatever, without them thinking, oh, man, every time I come out here, somebody wants something from me.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I would think that they would be thinking is that, okay, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
It's always about what you want from me rather than just being yourself on that.
It's tough, though. You walk up to guys in the clubhouse. I don't know what it's like now because I stopped doing it about 4 or 5 years ago. But the players today, I notice, are not. When I do go in, the few times I do, they're not as available as they used to be. But you go up there and you feel kind of. Ralph Barbieri used to tell this story. He's from KNBR, where I used to work, and he used to say, I hate going in the clubhouse because I always feel like I'm invading somebody's private space. And there is a little bit of that involved.
Well, it's a sanctuary. I mean, they spend more time in the clubhouse than they do in their own homes, with their own family.
And they see more of us than they do their own wives and kids. So no wonder that some of these guys are grouches.
Let me take the listeners inside the Giants clubhouse, if I may.
Sure.
The game ends, okay? The game ends. The team, they leave the field. They go out of the dugout, up the stairs, up the tunnel, and into the clubhouse. Bruce Bochy goes into the interview room moments later because he always speaks first before you go in the clubhouse. So we sequester in the little interview room. Bochy comes in for a few minutes, and he answers a few questions of the scribes and of the electronic media, and then he leaves and he goes out the back door. That signifies that the clubhouse is open. So we go down the hall and we go into the clubhouse, and almost every time, I'll probably go in there tomorrow. Almost every time when you walk in there, there might be maybe 4 guys in there. 4 guys. A couple of pitchers, just guys just kind of hanging out. But the guys you need, the primary guys, the position players, aren't readily available. And if Hunter Pence does something, God help you, because Hunter Pence goes right in the weight room. He works out for like 25 minutes, lifting weights before he goes to this locker. Now, most of the time when you walk in there, the first guy that talks is the pitcher, whoever the pitcher is of record, whoever the starting pitcher is. So you go to his locker first, whether it's Lincecum, whether it's Kane, whether it's Zito. You're usually already dressed, and they give you some time.
I was going to ask you, how much time, the game ends, how much time passes between the game ending and the time that you get to talk to Bruce Bochy?
In real time, I'd say it's within
15 minutes?
Within 10 minutes of the game ending.
Okay, and then how long do you get to spend with Bochy?
10 minutes?
He gives us, if it's a dramatic win, if something happens, like maybe in the Monday night game when Vogelsong got hurt.
Yeah.
He gives you a little bit more time because you want to find out about the injury, the nature of the injury. Well, we don't know. We got to get the MRI. So but usually no more than that. Right after the game.
That's 25 minutes, and then you go down, and so within 25 minutes, those guys are already taking showers, or
a lot of them are already in showers.
Okay.
Some, which is obviously off limits.
Sure.
A lot of them are in the weight room, off limits to us.
Okay.
A lot of them are getting treatment, off limits to us,
Okay.
and a lot of them are in the lunchroom, off limits to us. So we're just standing around in the middle of the clubhouse. The clubhouse is big. It's a big clubhouse. And, the boom box is going with whatever music or whatever. And it's a lot of hurry up and wait. It is not very exciting at all.
And it's a pain in the rear. I can tell you this, 6 or 7 years ago, this was not the case. You'd go into the manager's office, and usually the writers were asking the questions, and it was very informal, much more informal than it is today. And I oftentimes just bypass the manager because I want to get the players. And you could get the players because the players were still in uniform. And that's how I always got my interviews, was right after the game. I'd go in there before they got in their shower and just grab them.
Well, yeah, because you think about it, if 25 minutes has passed, I mean, guys aren't going to be sticking around waiting.
They all have. Well, in the case of the Oakland A's, they all have a post-game meal, so they're eating. A lot of these guys are.
That's true.
Are eating. At the Coliseum, it's a little different. The game ends at the Coliseum.
Okay.
Then Bob Melvin goes to the interview room, and he speaks first before the clubhouse is open. When he's done, then you walk back into the clubhouse and you go right over to the starting pitcher, and then there's but the clubhouse is, I'd say the A's clubhouse is 3/4 the size of the Giants clubhouse, I would say, in terms of length and width. Yes. Anyway, yeah, you just kind of go to whoever's talking. I would say now the A's are probably more accommodating.
Yeah, well, they have to be.
The
Younger
Giants players
guys.
are.
Younger guys.
Well, the meal though, is that off limits to you guys too? Where the
Sometimes they bring it into the clubhouse. Now, again, this is I'm talking about.
Well, in the A's clubhouse, the meal,
They have their
the
little
post-game
room.
meal is in the kitchen.
Yeah.
You guys go in, they fix themselves a plate, then they come back out and they sit down at the table.
Yeah.
you guys don't
and they
go in
eat.
there and eat?
No.
when I was
I was
traveling,
saying-
when I was traveling with the Giants on the road, actually, I was invited into the little eating area
Can you
once or
bring me
twice.
back a burger?
But it
next
was
time?
because, there were only like a handful of out-of-town media folks, and it's a much more informal thing. But you know who started that whole workout thing was the Oakland A's of the 1980s. The Canseco, Ricky Henderson,
McGuire.
Dave Henderson, McGuire, those guys would all go into the weight room. And I remember everybody was like, why are
Steroid
they
shots
right after the game.
And I was
Right.
thinking to myself, why are they doing this? They've never done this before. And that's where it all started. Dave McKay was the strength and conditioning coach.
And that's where the steroids happen.
Man.
Well,
Some of it's true. Yeah, I mean, Canseco, that's where he was doing. Probably not there.
Not
but,
that- yeah.
now in the visitors clubhouse, the manager speaks first in his office.
in his office, yeah.
And then you can go out and get whatever players
And
around.
it's easier to get visitors because there's not as much media covering them because they only bring maybe 6 or 7 guys at most. So they're a lot, and they don't have their families waiting for them. They're going to go back to the hotel, so they're more than happy to talk to you. At
Yeah.
least that was the case. I don't know. I'm sure it's the case.
And
today,
on the getaway game before
Sure.
they leave,
Yeah.
they're all writing checks.
oh yeah,
Or
the clubhouse guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
to give to the clubhouse guys.
yeah, for taking care of them. And
For
San Francisco
taking-
has
yeah.
San Francisco has some great clubhouse guys. Harvey Harjany, I think, is still there. The white-haired guy's got all the bobbleheads up in his office. He's got like a 350 bobblehead.
Mhm.
When you say take care of them, you're talking about over and above the Call of Duty?
Oh yeah, no.
But
They
we're
get-
Well, because the clubhouse guys, the visiting clubhouse guys, they
Oh, the visiting
they
clubhouse.
yeah, I'm telling you, yeah, they get the meal. They make sure they make sure that if you want your locker a certain way or whatever, they
they
just
take care of you.
they take care of the player.
Yeah.
And
How
they'll
much
make
do you think?
they'll make calls. They'll
Couple
make
hundred.
they'll make reservations. I think it's more than that.
Yeah, it could be.
I think it's more than that.
Each
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. Oh, well, not after the
O-
series.
only on after the getaway game.
Yeah,
no.
after the 3 games.
The last game
Yeah.
of the series.
These guys, they're basically getting blue collar wages. They're getting good money, but it's not. They're making 60, 70
Yeah, so a
grand
lot of
year.
these
It's
guys
good
are
money.
writing,
Right,
a lot of these
you
guys
gotta-
are writing checks.
Yeah.
That's 25 guys, writing a check,
Yeah.
and then
Making more than the players.
in the case of Pujols, you breaking out a big old fat
Yeah,
roll.
Sure.
Just peel a
Yeah,
couple
listen,
of hundies off.
Hey, if I had his money, I'd throw mine away.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys ready? Here
One
is-
last thing. One last thing. At the beginning of the year, when the team breaks training camp, and then they come to the stadium to get acclimated to their new clubhouse, they write another check. Each of them writes a check for like $700,
Wow.
and that goes to that goes to buying a lot of the food and stuff like that, a lot of supplies
Sure.
for the clubhouse for the balance of the year.
Excellent. Okay, guys, cutting off to the third and final trivia question, commercial break. Who retired in 2005, we're talking basketball still, who retired in 2005 with the most three-pointers made in a career? But you have to go back to 2005, right? The first 3 callers with the correct answer are going to win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. Call 888-660-4495 to answer this question. Who retired in 2005 with the most three-pointers made in his career? Make sure to include your name, your email address, speak slowly, and spell out your email one letter at a time. Don't touch that dial, because when we come back, we have some fun thoughts for the day. And you are listening to Sports Econ 101.
Is it Gary Payton?
No, I'm a Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller.
Yeah.
Against the guys, because she weighs 210 pounds.
Yeah.
Or, she's 6'7".
Yeah,
That's like,
that's like Manute Bol.
yeah, it's like a skinny, it's like a shorter Manute Bol. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, we'll just cut out these last 3 minutes and we're done. Thanks,
Right.
guys.
You got it.
See, and if you notice, I didn't repeat the phone number so many times that you guys had to.
Ah.
I learned that from you. Here we go. Welcome back to Sports Econ 101. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Bruce McGowan and Vern Glenn. When we cut to the third commercial break, we asked this trivia question: who retired in 2005 with the most three-pointers made 3-pointers made in a career?
Reggie
Reggie.
Miller.
Whose
Reggie
sister
Miller.
was Cheryl Miller, is Cheryl Miller. And I remember I was telling you guys during the break that whenever UCLA, which that was where Reggie started in college, would come play Cal, the fans would chant, Cheryl, Cheryl. I thought that was kind of mean, but
And do you remember May 1995, Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals? He scored 8 points in 9 seconds.
Ooh.
That was
Oh, yeah.
Remember that? He stole the ball.
Stole the ball, stole the email pass, shot it, man, hit a three,
Yeah.
got it again, shot, hit it again. Oh, man.
He was a one-man record.
That was 18 years ago.
That seems like yesterday.
Hard to
Doesn't it?
believe.
Dang.
Yeah, I still remember that. Stealing the ball, getting back, stepping back for a 3-pointer. Boom.
You know, I remember 1995 because I was here. I got married. My wife has put up with me officially for 18 years.
That was the year I moved to Marin County.
Well, good move for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
Nice move.
Okay, guys. Any last thoughts before we get into our thoughts for the day? You guys are gonna laugh. You're gonna laugh at this one. You're gonna like it.
Any last thoughts?
Any words of wisdom?
Any words of wisdom?
You know, I laughed at the Lon
30
Simmons, the
seconds.
great voice of the Giants and A's, and he said, "Don't ever tell an old person, no, this is your last thought." You know.
Okay. Well, then we're gonna cut out for the day. All right. You ready
I'm not
for
that
this?
old, though. I'm just
You young
saying.
kids out there, when you're
Yeah.
talking about playing a game, don't refer to it as a war out there.
Yeah, that's true. Good. I like that.
Angers
That's
the vets.
Yes.
Big time.
Yeah. and
Huge pet peeve.
Seriously, it does.
Very
Yeah.
good. I like that. Okay, here's our thoughts for the day. In the 1970s, I was a big A's fan, so I wore a shirt that said, "I'm an athletic supporter." I couldn't understand why everyone was laughing. Yeah, it turns out that was not exactly the wording I was trying to portray. And there's an old wise saying that says, "Give a man a fish, and he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, and he'll sit in a boat drinking beer all day long."
Yeah.
Isn't that the truth?
That's the truth.
And
All
eat
right.
later.
Okay, audience, stay tuned next week, or not stay tuned, but tune in next week to Sports Econ 101. We're going to be discussing sports topics from a business perspective, and we're going to be giving away some more vacations for answering sports trivia questions. Thanks for listening. On behalf of our team, I'm your host, Edward Brown. We'll see you next week. So long.